Hey everyone, with the year coming to a close, I want to make sure I highlight some of the books that I read this year that I just loved that I don't think enough people are talking about. Books that I may have talked about and you heard about and you just didn't quite put them on your TBR. Well, I'm here today to make sure that they wind up on that TBR. So let's get started. Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. It's Russell with Ink and Paper Blog. How are you doing today? As always, I hope you're happy, I hope you're healthy, I hope you're safe, and of course I hope you're reading an amazing book or two or three or four. The rain has moved out slightly. It is on its way back. I think we're supposed to have rain starting tomorrow for the rest of the week, but I have sunshine, I have good lighting, I don't feel as bright and shiny today. So I am here to talk about books and I am so excited. So every year I usually do a video where I try to highlight the books that I just think are so fantastic, but maybe not enough people are talking about, and I am here to fix that. So today I'm going to give you a short list of books that I think came out this year that everyone should be reading. So get out that pen, get out that paper, get out that Goodreads, however you keep track of your TBR. If you are so able, please order these books from your local independent bookstore. It's that time of year, they need us. Or if you're a library user, all of these books are out. All of these books you can get your hands on. So get your library copy in your hands as soon as possible. I just put these in alphabetical order by the author. That was the easiest way to organize them. So we're going to start at the beginning with The Arsonists City by Hala, Alyan, and this is out from HMH. I read this book, I don't know how many months ago, and I continuously come back to it. It is very likely that this is going to be on my top 10 reads of the year. What I love about this book is that epic family saga aspect where you just learn so much about one family through time, through history, through trials and tribulations, through happiness and through sadness. So this is the story. We have a mother who is Syrian, a father who is Lebanese, and they move to America and they have 3 children. Now, the father's father has passed away, leaving him the house that the family has a lot of ties to in Beirut. And the father has decided that he is going to sell that house, and the mother is not having it. So she decides to rope her children into traveling as a group all the way to this house in order for them to convince the father not to sell it. But in the meantime, we are going to learn about how the mother and father got together, their history, how the political upheaval of the area, how that affected them and where they wound up settling down and raising their family. We also learn about the 3 children. One is a mother, I think she's a professor of some sort, whose marriage may or may not be on the rocks, but her husband doesn't come. She has 2 children and she's dealing with that. We have the middle son who wants to be a musician, has always wanted to have his band. He lives in Austin, Texas, I believe. And he's just never taken off. But it turns out that he's actually very, very good in the restaurant world. And he's decided to quit his band. And he has a very complicated relationship with his girlfriend. And then we have the youngest daughter, who is actually the only one that actually moved and is living in Beirut. And she is a very famous musician. And she is queer. And she's dealing with sort of finding her place now that her family has come to where she has been independently herself. All of that comes together in a beautiful, moving story about family, about love, about relationships, about everything that was going on in this part of the world that formed this family, and in good ways and bad ways. I loved this book. It is beautifully written, and I am so hoping more people read it. So that's The Arsonists City by Hala, Alyan, out from HMH. That one is always one of those books where I talk about it and I love what I say, excuse me, but I don't know if I ever do it justice. So I hope you read it and you tell me if I did a good enough job to get you to read it. The next book that I want to tell you about is Gianrico Carofiglio's 3 o'clock in the morning, out from HarperVia. This is translated from the Italian by, hold on one second, flip a page, Howard Curtis. Now, actually, there's a number of books that I've read this year about sort of the the parent-child relationship. And a lot of them have been very, very good. But this one just sticks with me. Now, from what I understand, Carofiglio is known more or may be very famous as a writer of, maybe it's thrillers. I don't exactly know. But I know that this is like a book that's a little bit off his normal beaten path. This is the story of a father and a son. So the son, at a young age, is diagnosed with epilepsy. And the family takes him to a specialist, and he is basically given medication and told to come back when he turns 18 to see whether or not he's going to be epileptic for the rest of his life, or maybe it's something that they can wean him off the medication and he'll be fine. So in that time period, his parents split, their relationship goes sour, and he sort of is distanced from his father for a number of reasons. But when he turns 18, only his father is able to take him to this specialist where I believe it's in Marseille. Yeah, Marseille. And they go there together. And what the doctor says is that the son has to stay up for 48 hours straight. And in doing so, if he doesn't have a seizure, then he is more or less cured and he will be able to live the rest of his life, hopefully off of medicine for epilepsy. And so what happens is the father and son go on this sort of like adventure through Marseille and get to know each other, have these sort of special moments that have been missing in their relationship. And the son really gets to maybe understand his father better. And the father starts to sort of develop that relationship that the son has always been looking for. This book is funny. It is taunt with sort of that difficulty of love and relationships and forgiveness. But in the end, this book made me bawl my eyes out. And I just absolutely loved everything about it. So that's 3 o'clock in the morning by Gianrico Carofiglio, out from HarperVia. Again, it's translated from the Italian by Howard Curtis, I believe. Howard Curtis. A beautiful, beautiful book. Beautiful. Okay, now I normally read a lot of fantasy in a year. This has not been that year. I have not, but I have read one that consistently stuck with me all year long. And I want to say I read this back in like March, and that is The Unbroken by C.L. Clarke. This is the first in a new series that is coming out, and this is the story of two women. So we have Katherine, who is a soldier who, when she was very young, I think she was like 5, she was stolen from her country and brought into the army of sort of the political power in the area. She is now returned to her homeland as an escort to Luca, who is a princess, queen-in-waiting, who has come to end the turmoil of this country and sort of its fight against the occupation of her family and her country. And they get there, and there's all of this political stuff that goes on, and it would be too much for me to explain it to you. But at the center of this book is this relationship between Katherine and Luca, the development of that, Katherine finding connections to a land that she is more or less thought she had distanced and forgotten herself. Luca realizing that, there's more to politics than simply being the leader. And their relationship, what they do, the intrigue, it's just so good. And I'm not doing it justice because, as all epic fantasy, there's a lot going on. But it's about strong women. It's about queer women. It's about relationships. It's about political intrigue. It's got a little magic. It's got a little bit of everything you need for a fantastic fantasy series. I cannot wait for C.L. Clarke to put out the second book. I am waiting with bated breath. So this is out from Orbit. It is out now, The Unbroken by C.L. Clarke. So if you have a fantasy reader in your life who's looking for a new series to start, highly, highly recommend. Okay. Next is a book that was longlisted for the National Book Award. Now, funny enough, Graywolf Press, who had sent me a copy of this book, and I had sort of picked it up and I thought, oh, it sounds interesting, but it just never made it into my real TBR. And then of course I always read the National Book Award list. And then I was like, why the heck hadn't I read this sooner? It is brilliant. And that's Abundance by Jakob Guanzon. And this is again out from Graywolf Press. They sent me a copy. I went and bought myself a copy as well because I had to have it on my shelf as a finished copy. This is, oh gosh, another story about a father and a son. But this book is so heartbreaking. This is a story of a man who has gotten custody of his son because his wife and the mother has left. However, they are also extremely poor, and they are living out of their truck, and they are counting their pennies. And it is the young boy's birthday, and the father has splurged. He's taken him to, I believe, McDonald's, bought him the meal. The kid is not feeling well, but he's also rented a hotel room for the night. So the kid can sleep in a room, have a bathtub, all of that for a night. And this book is really about what just happens from this moment forward as the father tries to he's trying to get a job, and we learn in different ways on how they got there. Like, this is one of those stories about how money is so important when you don't have it that you realize every penny counts. And what is fantastic is each chapter starts with the amount of money that is in the father's bank account. Now, we go into the past, he comes into some money, and how they utilize that, and how it's this sort of ongoing cycle of poverty and money management, and just the tragedy of people trying to get out of poverty, and how almost darn near impossible that is. This book is heartbreaking. You will cry. You will at times be warmed. It is at its heart really a father-son story, and the father loves his son, let me tell you. It is so good, and I cannot wait. This is a debut novel, by the way, Abundance by Jakob Guanzon, and I cannot wait to see what he does next. This book was fantastic, but I'm warning you, it will break your heart. I just realized that I'm like raving about these books, so this video may be a little longer than I intended it to. Katherine Heiny is one of those authors that I've read, I think, almost everything she's written. And every book I truly feel is better than the last. And her new book this year was Early Morning Riser, out from Knopf. I adored this book. I love a book about like a small town. And this is actually set in Boyne City, Michigan, which is like up the peninsula, up towards Petoskey, that area, Traverse City. It's a small town. And we have Jane, who moves there to be a teacher. And it's all about what happens when Jane starts to become part of the community. She falls in love with this man who has this reputation. He basically has been with almost every woman in the town, and she falls in love with him. They have this relationship. They wind up meeting other people and taking people under their wings, and tragedy happens, and her responsibilities change, and her perspective on what a meaningful relationship is change. Duncan grows too, from a man who wants no attachment to a man who understands the importance of relationships and family and father figures. But it all takes place in this little tiny bubble of a world where everything is known and everything is seen. There's so many emotions in this book. Everything feels so real. And Jane all of the characters actually are just really beautifully written. I loved this book. And I think if you're a fan of books where you just sort of plop yourself into a person's life and learn about who they are, the people they meet, and all of that, you will absolutely, absolutely love this book. So that's Early Morning Riser from Katherine Heiny, out from Knopf. It's weird to say that someone shortlisted for the National Book Award had a book come out, and I don't think enough people talked about it. But I have to say, not enough people have read The Removed by Brandon Hobson. This one is out from Ecco, and I loved it. I loved his last book, Where the Dead Sit Talking, which was shortlisted, and I was so excited for this one. This is the story of the Achota family. They live in Oklahoma. The mother is taking care of the father, who has just been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. They lost their youngest son about 15 years ago to an incident where he was at a mall and shot by a police officer. They have another daughter who is moved out, but she has struggled to create relationships. And then they have a son who has dealt with drugs, and he was actually the youngest. Sorry, I think I may have misspoken there. But he has dealt with drugs and sort of all of that for a long time. He is outside. I think he's in New Mexico when the book starts, and he is sort of starting a journey home. It is about how this death of this brother sort of affected all of these people. The family, the mother and the father, are asked to take in a young boy who is going into foster care because I believe his mother is going into jail for some reason or another. When he comes into the household, the father, who has been losing his memory for some time now, just sort of has a moment of brightness, and that really just changes the dynamic in the household. The family is getting ready to celebrate the anniversary with a Cherokee national holiday and an annual bonfire that's about to go on. But also through this, you get this story of a group of Indians who were affected by the dislocation of their maybe that's not the right word. They were forced to move from where they were, their homeland, and moved to Oklahoma. So the Trail of Tears sort of comes into play. And there's like almost this oral history going on in alternate sections that bring it all together. And it's so good. I cannot do it justice. It is heartbreaking and fantastically nuanced in how it deals with pain and loss and love and family, and all of that. It is so good. Everyone should read it. It's The Removed by Brandon Hobson, out from Ecco, and I will tell you this will be on my top 10 list at the end of the year because it is fantastic. Okay, let's see. I have 3 books left. Told you this video is going to be a little bit long. The next book I want to make sure everyone's reading is Love in the Big City by Sang-Young Park, translated from the Korean by Anton Her. This is out from Grove. This book was one of those books that just surprised me as I read it. So we have, it's the story of he's a young man at the start of it. It's the story of Young. He's, a young gay Korean man living in Seoul, and he is not creating relationships. He's definitely not figured out who he wants to be, where he wants to be, until he meets a young woman who becomes sort of his best friend. And she and him just gel. And they move in together, they sort of live this party life together, and he just feels that everything is the way it's supposed to be, but this is really the only relationship he has. Well, she eventually decides to get married, and she moves on, and her life becomes more stationary and maybe a little bit more expected. And he doesn't know what to do. So then after the section where they're together, we get 2 sections where he has 2 different relationships. One with a man who is completely closeted and does not want any sense of like public acknowledgement, and how that affects the young. And then we have the second relationship where there's a lot more love, a lot more reality to the fact that they could be together, but it is affected by what happened in his past and how he uses that in ways to sabotage all the good that's in his life. I hope that's enough to get you to read this. I have read a lot of amazing, amazing queer books this year. It's just been a great year for me in that regard. And this one just really sticks out to me. And everyone I know that's read this one has absolutely loved it. It's got a grittiness to it that I don't know how to explain, but it just, it seems weird to use this term again. It's just really real. So that's Love in the Big City by Sang-Young Park, translated by Anton Her from the Korean, out now from Grove. You can get your hands on it. I promise you it will be worth your time. It's a little different than what I normally read, but definitely affecting. Okay, so the next one I want to tell you about is White on White. I just actually hauled this book. I have just finished this one. I haven't done my wrap up on it. Someone helped me with the name Aysegul, Savas. I hope I said that right. It was phonetically broken down for me. Aysegul Savas. And this is out from Riverhead Books. And this book is brilliant. This is like one of those bullets of a book where it just hits you and go like boom. Okay. This is the story of a young student who moves into this house to do research on his art history degree. And it's sort of 2 levels. On the top of it is a woman who has a artist's studio. Her name is Agnes, and she is married to the owner of it. This student moves in, understanding that Agnes may show up every once in a while in order to do her art. She does show up, and it turns out that Agnes's relationship with her husband we learn is on the rocks, and she is trying to find herself. And from the student's point of view, we watch as Agnes goes through a bunch of difficulties with herself, with her self-identity, with her art. And the student doesn't know how to deal with this. He creates a friendship, and then he realizes the awkward power of it. And Agnes is sort of turning him into a crutch in a lot of ways. And you know what I'm saying? Him. And I don't know. It's a her. No. I'm not sure we know the gender of the student now that I think about it. Oh gosh, I need to reread this book again. All I will say is this book is so good and so much to think about. And it's all about this relationship. It's convoluted and powerful and complicated and all of that. That's White on White by Aysegul Savas, out from Riverhead Books. Have you ever read a book and thought one thing in your head 100%, and then all of a sudden you go, did I think wrong about that this whole time? That just happened to me. Last but not least is Secret of Happiness by Joan Silber. This is out from Counterpoint Press. Joan Silber, I feel like, is a excuse me, a hidden secret. I feel like her last book, Improvement, was fantastic. I believe it won the National Book Circle Award. And this book is so good, and I just don't think enough people read her. And this book is the story of a family. So Ethan is sort of our starting character. He is a son. I think he's a lawyer. And what happens is he finds out that his father, for years and years and years, has had a second family living in the same town, a wife that he brought over from Thailand, children, and he just finds out they had no idea. And the book starts from Ethan's perspective and what happens when that secret gets out. And we go through many different perspectives and how this family and this secret getting out sort of affects multiple people. We get to meet the other children. We get to see what happens to the mother, his mom, who leaves, and she winds up going away for like a year and coming back a completely different person. She then has to start a relationship with this other woman because the father gets ill and needs to be taken care of, and who's going to do what. And it gets very complicated. But at the same time, Joan Silber is teaching us about all these different people. It's got almost like that interconnected short story thing because each section is from a different perspective. The bookend sections from Ethan. And we just learn how the dynamics of all of this come together. It is so, so good. Secrets of Happiness, I can't get the shine off, I'm sorry, by Joan Silber, out from Counterpoint. So that is a stack of books that all came out in 2021 that I just don't know enough people are talking about. Let me see if I can pull them up here. So hold them up for you. There you go. And they are all so very, very good. And I want you to read every single one of them. Okay, if you are a return subscriber, I could not do this without you. Thank you so very, very much. If you are new to my channel, thank you. I hope you subscribe. I hope you hit the button and do all of that. I hope you enjoy listening me to ramble about books and come to epiphanies in the middle of a video. As always, I encourage you to read globally, shop locally, and until next time, I wish you happy reading. Bye, everyone.